And we are ready. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone, from all of our homes, including mine and Cantor's. We are going to begin with Hine Mato that can be found on page 10.
הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, 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 שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. La 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 la. Ine ma tov, ine ma tov. La 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 la. Ine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Ine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
We continue in our service on page 2 in the prayer books with lighting candles for Shabbat. You'll notice that only the cantor or myself will be speaking at any given time. This is simply because it's impossible to synchronize our sound over this format as we would normally hear our voices filling the sanctuary. So as she leads this prayer to bring some light into this Shabbat and this moment of crisis and strangeness in our lives, I invite you to sing as I will out loud, but muted through this format as we join together with our cantor.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להד לפני של שבת.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. Their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so that we may in our own day be among those who kindle light. And we continue on page 5 with Kiddush. I invite you to please rise as you are able, but also as you are comfortable to do so, and join us in welcoming Shabbat with a little bit of sweetness.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher קידשנו מצוותיו ונצוונו, בשבת קודשו באהבה וששון לתפילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תפילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. קיבלנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל חיים, בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. L'chaim. We won't ask what was in your cup. Don't worry, I have some whiskey on standby for the online Zoom oneg that will follow. It is, of course, BYOE, meaning bring your own everything. We continue in our service on page 12 with L'chu Naranana.
בצור ישנו, לה 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 לה, וקדמה פניו, ותודה, ותודה. בזמירות נגיע לו, נגיע לו,
As we continue in our service in a moment on pages 20 and 21 with the Chado D, before we do so, I want to remind everyone about the chat feature in Zoom. Of course, if you're watching this through the Facebook stream, then the chat and interactivity there is a little bit more intuitive. But on Zoom, there is a chat. It's in the main menu bar. It looks like a chat box. And if you don't see it there, you can click on More, and you'll see Chat. More is where the 3 dots are. And in the chat box, just keep in mind that unless you change it from everyone to a specific person, we can all see what you write, including myself. And this will be a great way to bring in the tovs and the tov lehodot that will follow our next prayer. For now, we continue with the Chado D on pages 20 and 21, as is our custom. We will continue on paragraphs 1, 2, 5, and 9, rising on the 9th and facing whatever entrance makes sense in your space. I love that people are preemptively putting the tovs in. So we continue with the Chado D. And now we continue. Some of you have already been practicing with Tov Lehodot on page 22.
So folks, my voice is still not okay. So I apologize for that. I need you to sing really out loud with me, although I will not hear you, but I trust you to do it.
I believe in it. I believe that we will hear them through the magic of Shabbat.
No, it must be so. We're one community and we help each other. And I'm now not on my best.
So Cantor, what we couldn't see last Shabbat and what you can't see now, but I will describe to you, is in time, in time with your singing, like several stoves would show up at the same exact moment. So many so that I can't even see how many people were writing it.
Great job. Great job.
Yes, yes indeed. We continue, let's continue with Chatzi Kaddish, Cantor, on page 26. As we continue on page 30, we remain standing, and I invite everyone to continue with me reading together on page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chochma poteach she'arim u'vitvuna meshane itim, u'machalif et hazmanim, u'mesater et hakohavim, v'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, u'ma'avir yom u'mevi layla, u'mavdil bein yom u'vein layla, Adonai tzavaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. And on the top of page 33, I read, and please join me at home. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Israel. We continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 36.
את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלו אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשובך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We continue at the top of page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. And so, Cantor, we once again sing with you as we continue with a prayer for freedom. And on this Passover and every Milcha for the foreseeable future, we will also be praying for the freedom to once again resume our normal lives as we have entered into a shared voluntary captivity that is so necessary and yet so difficult.
Yes. And I just want to say that I purposefully chose selections, musical selections that need to be sang as a duet, so that I will have you singing with me as a duet.
Cantor, I want to promise you that we are with you and very, very grateful to have you leading us, even though you can't hear or feel our participation in the room.
No, I
And
can.
we will...
I see the faces. I see the
Oh,
faces.
excellent. Good, good, good. I've just got the Mishkan up, so I can only see you and also myself, which is slightly weird. But we continue with this prayer, and it's a prayer that takes on new meaning. I think I said the same thing last week, but when we turn to page 42 for Hashkivenu, this is a prayer for shelter in the darkness. And as we have new meanings to shelter in place and to what it means to be at home, it's still worth keeping in mind that it is a blessing to have one that we can indeed take shelter in. And so we share together in this prayer. As we continue on page 44, even at a distance, it is still Shabbat. And as it is Shabbat, that means V'shamru. We join together. As we continue in Tefillah together, we will be on the even pages starting on page 46, and I will ask you to rise as you're able and comfortable to do so in whatever situation you find yourself, whether you're attentively here on Zoom, completely focused and with us in every single moment, or if you have this on in the background in Facebook Live while you're chasing children around your house, like the crazy people that we have all become. We hope that you will at least find some community as we enter into this prayer together. This is also a fun time to figure out if you know which way east is from whatever room you're standing is, if you would like to face that direction. For me, east is literally the exact opposite way that I'm facing right now, but I don't want to face away from the screen lest something go wrong. And also I figure if I go west far enough, I'll still get to Israel eventually anyway. We join together.
Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, כגיבור וכנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר, מושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחייך הכל, אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומרעיד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחייך הכל ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ברופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשלח מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה מלך מניף ומחייך ומצמיח ישועות, ולמען אתה לפחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחייך הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללו חסר. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
I just realized that I was not muted during all of that, and I deeply, deeply apologize for the strange way that I am sure that sounded.
No, we couldn't hear you at all.
Oh, good. So maybe I was on mute. I know how to use technology. As we continue in our service, speaking of muting and unmuting, I am actually about to take the dangerous step of unmuting everyone for a few moments. It will probably sound cacophonous and completely strange, but here's how it will work. As we turn to the Hoda'ah prayer in our service, to page 58, we come to the moment in our Shabbat service where we typically say what we are grateful for. And I know last week when we were just on Facebook Live, people were typing it in Facebook Live. So if you're watching it on Facebook Live, type something you're grateful for in the comments. If you're here, type it in the Zoom group chat, or in just a moment, I'm going to unmute everyone. And if we can sort ourselves out, I would love to hear a few people say something that you're grateful for that has happened this week.
Use my tablet.
Everyone is now unmuted.
Last time we're ill, and I thank God for that, and I continue to hope that I will not be ill.
I'm not sure.
I don't think this is.
I took the liberty of muting everyone again. I am going to instead take my backup approach, and I'm going to read out what people write in the comments, because it sounded, at least on my computer, like a sci-fi alien landing, less so than being able to understand anything that anyone was saying. So Cantor, you and I are the only ones off muted, and I'm going to read Bavones. I so enjoyed my walk today, saw 3 deer in the woods. I was grateful that it didn't rain and that it was sunny enough to do that as well. Grateful for healthcare workers who are so selfless. I could not agree more. Grateful that all of my family is still healthy. Grateful that Eric survived the virus. Yes, as are we. Grateful that we can be together, even if on Zoom. Thank you so much for everyone who shared. And please feel free to continue share in those comments as I read this blessing at the bottom of page 58. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulchana lehodot. Blessed are you, Adonai. We are so thankful to be able to celebrate the goodness in the world and have things even amongst this crazy, crazy time to say thank you for. We continue on the next page, page 60, with Shalom Rav, our prayer for peace. And once again, we invite you to join with us.
Shalom Rav Israel Abba, Asim Leolam. Shalom Rav Israel Abba, Asim Leolam. Ki ata melchato lechol hashalom. Ki ata melchato לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמד, אשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמד, אשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל. בכל עת ובכל שעה לשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
As we reach a moment for silent prayer in our service, we think about everything that's happening in the world. We think about the new life that we are each living, each of us with our own unique challenges. So many of us with very, very severe challenges, personally, professionally, with health, with finding sanity, with our children, with our parents, with our grandparents. It is a world that can be so full of fear, and it's okay to think about that even now in these moments. But wherever our mind takes us, whatever we seek to find or take from this week or leave behind, we do so now in this shared silence.
שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
As we turn in our prayer books to page 253, Yishaberach Avotenu v'Imotenu, Hu Yivarech et HaCholim, God who blessed our ancestors with healing. We read in our stories in our Torah about plagues and sickness on scales that we once thought were unimaginable, and yet now we find ourselves living through just such a situation. We think of those who were already in need of healing in our congregation: David Gohane, Gail Abramson, Denise Lowett, Masha Chaya Batlipe, Barbara Enos, Darcy Pfeiffer, Emma Burla, David Ben Pessel, John Nathaniel, Yaakov Chaim, Ben Shoshana, Herb Diamond, Lucine Rappaport, Marilyn Lanzi, Susan Fishbane, Jean Resnick, Paul Block, Justin Schulman, Dee Inge, Cheryl Anger, Naomi Kirstein, Shelley Ballin, Grayson Shane Friedman, Linda Thompson, Ira Heaps, Jennifer Rosenthal, Grace Rockland, Katie Hirsch, Mary Peled, Pesach Menachem Ben Devora, Zoya Badraya, Judy Rice, George Basso, Abraham Yitzhak, Moshe Vachaika, Eileen Grogan, Aharon Ben Zoya, Oren Collins, Renee Farley, Duncan Littleman, Golda Batlea Elka, Bob Stupinski, Rebecca Gormer, Joan Landsberg, Kim Suttle, Shelby Cabin, Rochelle Small, John Lewis, Nechema Ben Shifra. We also think of everyone who is sick with the virus right now in northern New Jersey and Bergen County, in the neighborhoods and streets and next door houses where we live across America, across the world. I invite everyone now to say a name out loud wherever you are, of anyone for whom you're thinking of, and in this prayer for healing. And if you wish to write their name and share it with the community in the chat, either on Zoom or on Facebook, as we sing this prayer together.
Bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
I have taken the liberty of turning off the screen share, which hopefully will allow people to see each other. You may feel free to let your mind wander, use the chat box to speak to other people who are on this Zoom, which no one will be able to see except for me and Steve and everyone else with this professional account once we download the chat script after the fact. But either way, I just wanted to share a few words this evening, and I understand if now is the time to let your mind wander. Leadership has been on my mind recently in ways that it has not really been on my mind ever before. And since it's been on my mind, it has of course also been on my web browser. And in that, I actually found my way to a page of interesting quotes about leadership from leaders. And I want to share a few of them with you now. If we were all together and in real time, I would force you to guess who said what. So you can do that on your own, but I will be saying the name right afterwards. Don't tell people how to do things. Tell them what to do, and then let them surprise you with your results. That was George Patton. You don't lead by hitting people over the head. That's assault, not leadership. That's Dwight Eisenhower. The best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and the self-restraint to keep from meddling with them while they do it. Theodore Roosevelt. The very essence of leadership is that you have to have vision. You can't blow an uncertain trumpet. Theodore Hesburgh. Delegation works, provided that the one delegating works as well. Robert Half, who never went halfway. I actually don't know who he is off the top of my head, don't judge me. It's a terrible thing to look over your shoulder when you are trying to lead and find no one there. Franklin Roosevelt said that, but I don't think he was imagining a time when we would be leading and looking over our shoulder and no one would be there because we were all practicing social distancing. So I'm going to say that that one doesn't count right now. And finally, you can build a throne with bayonets, but you can't sit on it for long. Boris Yeltsin. So you'll probably assume that leadership has been on my mind because in the last few weeks, our president, Steve Berman, myself, Cantor, Maura Barbara, and so many others in our congregation, we have had to make an unprecedented number of decisions on what we are doing as a community, and we've had to make those decisions very quickly and with pretty much no guidance from an official source. And if you are presuming that, well, sure, you're correct, but that's not the only reason that I'm thinking about this leadership on this Shabbat, because the opening of this week's Torah portion, Vayikra, is in fact about the same subject. Vayikra el Moshe, just 3 words, or 4 in English. Adonai called on Moses. Normally, the Torah uses the phrase, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe, God spoke to Moses. But in the opening of Leviticus, it says Vayikra, God called on Moses. Just like how you would call on someone when taking roll, or in a formal setting where you would charge someone with a special task. And that's indeed how the rabbis interpret this. Moses is, of course, chosen by God for his great task of leadership. And the rabbis say that this is because Moses as a leader was strong and fearless and responsible and wise and honored God, and also was humble. It's a lot of great qualities, but you know, it is Moses. When we look out into the world as it is in chaos, a world experiencing something very much like the plagues that Moses was a shepherd through, and some of the plagues later after the famous 10 ones were plagues against the Israelites, which is what I'm referring to. It leads us to the question, where is our Moses? It's a fair question because we've had Moseses before in modern times, including here in the United States, and even one here in New Jersey just some decades ago. That Moses' name was Rabbi Joachim Prinz. And I want to tell you just a little bit about this modern Moses. Rabbi Prinz started his rabbinical career in a great time, Germany, 1937. So already under Nazi regime, he became a rabbi and eventually fled safely to the States and wound up in the great Mecca of Jewish life, Newark, New Jersey. So in Newark, he saw the plight of African Americans and minority groups in the context of his own experience under Hitler and the Nazis and the Nuremberg laws. And so this led him to become a leader in the civil rights movement. He became the president of the American Jewish Congress. He represented the Jewish community officially as an organizer in the 1963 March on Washington. He even spoke at that famous march. He went right after a spiritual sung by African-American folk singer Avodat, and right before, he was the person right before Martin Luther King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. So just as an aside, if you hadn't heard of Rabbi Prinz before and how he was a modern Moses, let me just defend him by saying that if you're going to be upstaged by a speaker that will dwarf you in history, being upstaged, you could do a lot worse than being upstaged by Martin Luther King when he gives the I Have a Dream speech. So the reason I've spoken so much about him is because I want to share a few of Rabbi Prinz's words from that speech. And here they are in his own original words. I speak to you as an American Jew. As Jews, we bring a twofold experience, one of the Spirit and one of our history. In the realm of the Spirit, our ancestors taught us thousands of years ago that when God created people, each was created as everyone's neighbor. Neighbor is not a geographic term. It is a moral concept. It means our collective responsibility for the preservation of dignity and integrity. The time has come to work together, for it is not enough to hope together. It is not enough to pray together. We must work together so that liberty and justice for all may become a glorious, unshakable reality in a morally renewed and united America. Those words from the height of the civil rights movement, they could have been written 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, or even this morning. Imagine where we might be if we had such a leader to see us through this crisis. But unfortunately, we can't waste time lamenting what could be. We have to find the strength to accept the world as it is right now, today. And in this unprecedented crisis, we have to face the fact that the answer to the question, where is our Moses, might be nowhere. So don't get me wrong. I would love for us to get a Moses right now, or even yesterday, or even a month ago, or even in December. But I'm afraid we don't have time to wait. And also, we don't need to, because we need to be the ones to remember that right now, neighbor is a moral concept, but it's also a literal concept based on next door geography. We have a collective responsibility for all people's dignity, yes. Integrity, yes. But right now, a responsibility for our neighbors' literal lives. We're the ones that have to work together from a distance so that liberty and justice may become a glorious, unshakable reality in a morally renewed and united. And if we follow the practices that we need to, eventually, a once again healthy America. I am going to conclude with one last leadership quote before we turn to Olenu. And I think that this quote will be useful for all of us as we each take up the mantle of needing to be a modern Moses. And we do. We need to be a modern Moses for ourselves. We need to be a modern Moses in the households wherein which we are confined. And we need to be a modern Moses for our neighbors, just so that we can survive and come through this crisis as safe as possible. So these words of conclusion are from John Cantor, who's the Emeritus Professor of Leadership at Harvard Business. Great leadership does not mean running away from reality. Sometimes the hard truths might just demoralize the company, but at other times, sharing difficulties can inspire people to take action that will make the situation better. May it be so for each of us. Shabbat Shalom. I am now going to turn back on the screen share, Cantor, and we will continue on page 282 with Olenu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון נכון, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי רצון, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמוניו, אנחנו חולים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא הגיע אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Now is the moment where our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us. We think already many of us have known someone who have passed from this horrible, horrible disease. And in their honor, including someone who I know personally, I read before the Mourner's Kaddish this reading on page 292. When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and the strength of faith can lighten the heaviness of the heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear, but if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction, he learned the law of God, and in truth, grief is a great teacher when it sends us back to serve and bless the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in their presence and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. Thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as they in their higher moments wish to live. We remember them now. They live in our hearts, and they are an abiding blessing. As we turn to page 294, I ask you to please rise as is your custom and as you are able to do so for Mourner's Kaddish. We think in our communities of the recent passings of Buddy Bernstein and Gerald Sagerman. And as I recall out loud the yard sites for this Shabbat, I invite anyone to say the name in the chat box that I will then read aloud of anyone for whom you are remembering on this Shabbat. Bert Backrack, Louis Blazer, Rita Bell, Beatrice Bergen, Charles Darbrish, Lena Faust, Max Fink, Esther Friedman, Louis Kitts, Jacob Lavenda, C. Levine, James Levy, Harold Light, Shayla Peled, Dana Popkin, Sol Rauch, Nina Rosinski, Mac Rosinski, Michelle Rizika, Sarah Scher, Abraham Schnall, Fanny Siegel, Anna Sims, Rebecca Sheffman, Berta Strass, Joseph Thorne, Joseph Thon, Lily Thon, and Miriam Weber. We also add Marilyn Clements. We think of them and everyone who is in our hearts at this time as we read these words together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra chirute v'almich malchute, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitoramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudasha barichu. Le'elan min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, ta'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. I invite you now to please once again be seated. As we move to conclude our service in a few minutes with Adon Olam, I actually want to invite, potentially, if I can find him, Steve, to actually say hello with a few words of welcome. Steve, you are unmuted.
I want to thank the Rabbi and the Cantor for leading us again in this different world we're in at the moment, a different type of service. And I want to thank everyone who's on for joining us. It's a great show of community, and there really aren't announcements per se of events we're holding at the moment. As you all know, everything is currently being done remotely through Zoom. We are live streaming it. We're putting it up onto YouTube afterwards. Please keep checking the website. There are links right on the homepage to everything we're doing online. And other than that, stay safe, and hopefully we can all be together again soon. Shabbat Shalom. And go have a cookie.
Shabbat Shalom. A cookie indeed. So before we conclude, I will just say that after we finish Adon Olam, I will stop the streaming to Facebook and I will stop the recording, but I will not stop the Zoom. And I will, in fact, let everyone who wishes to unmute themselves voluntarily. I'll let you know when you have the permission to do so. And grab yourself a snack or a drink or a cup of coffee or whatever you wish, or even just hang out for a little bit of schmoozing and kibitzing on this Shabbat. We conclude with Adon Olam on page 321.
Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem kol Yetzer Nivra, V'et Nasa B'chefto Kol, Azay Melech
Whether we wish it or not, right now, when we seek leadership in this time of crisis, social distancing, and isolation, we might need to first look to ourselves and to each other just to find the strength to keep going, to find the brightness in the darkness, and to find another face, maybe even a face that we don't live with all the time, just to see and be seen, to listen and to speak, to find community, and to remember that even though it's hard, even though there will be loss, we will eventually be on the other side of this, and most of us will be okay, even if not everyone is. With that, Shabbat Shalom.